So one of the things about practicing meditation and learning to meditate is that if you just practice meditation and follow the instructions to practice meditation, meditation will teach you how to meditate over time. However, if you're interested in practicing powerful meditation and getting the benefit and the results of it, it's highly recommended that you not just practice meditation and based on the instructions, but also take on the study of meditation. Take on the teachings that are connected to meditation. This will accelerate your ability to meditate. It will help to give you clarity about the purpose of meditation. So I highly recommend that you become a student of consciousness. This will accelerate your ability to meditate, and it will accelerate the results that you get from meditation. And fortunately, right now we live in a world where information is abundantly available in terms of consciousness. There's all kinds of materials available on YouTube, and one of the things, and there's a lot of books available, and so one of the ways that I want to be of service is to recommend certain teachers and certain readings and certain YouTube videos that I think are more relevant or more focused on these teachings and are more powerful in terms of elucidating or providing you with the opportunity to have the revelations that are necessary in order to fulfill on the potential of meditation, because the purpose of the teachings that coincide with meditation is not to learn your way into the result that you're after as far as experiencing the truth of yourself and experiencing the truth of reality. But the teachings are helpful in terms of developing deeper understandings about the truth of yourself and the truth of reality, so that you can begin to have revelation, that you can begin to have it revealed to you directly in your experience. And so these teachings are called pointings. They're pointing at the experience, and the experience is the truth, not the teachings. The teachings are conceptual. One of the teachers that I've been studying recently, that is one of the better known teachers, that has a very clear ability to communicate about consciousness and about these teachings, is Rupert Spira. Many of you have already heard me talk about him. And recently I have been reading one of his books called The Transparency of Things. And so this is a book that I would recommend if you're interested in reading some material that is very clear about what it's pointing to. One of the things that I came across in this book that I thought was useful and interesting is this. It may well be that at the end of a process of exploring the nature of experience, using the full capacity of its powers of conceptual thinking, the mind will come to understand the limits of its ability to apprehend the truth of the matter, and as a result, will spontaneously come to an end. It will collapse from within, so to speak. What he's talking about there is the fact that when we have conversations or dialogues, or when we listen to teachings, we're listening to concepts, right? We're listening to ideas. And the mind operates with concepts and ideas. The mind can't comprehend the truth. The truth is an experience, it's not a concept. And so we can't use the mind to comprehend the truth. But what we can use the mind to do is to understand, and this is an interesting thing if you consider it, what we can use the mind to do is to understand the concepts that point to the experience of the truth, and then ultimately we can use the mind to understand conceptually its own limitations. Let me repeat that. This is a very important thing to understand. The mind can't comprehend the truth. The truth is not conceptual. But the mind can learn about concepts that point to this experience, and the mind ultimately can conceptually recognize through concepts its own limitations in terms of that it cannot comprehend the truth. And when it meets these limitations, the mind will fall like a house of cards. It's a way of describing the experience of surrender. It's a way of describing the experience of giving up in terms of trying to be what you are, right? Because the mind can't do it. It's like trying to see yourself by looking through a lens with the idea that the self that you're trying to see will be on the other side of the lens. Do you follow that? It's like trying to see yourself by looking through a lens. The lens would be the mind, right? It's like trying to see yourself by looking through a lens as if the self that you're going to see will be on the other side of the lens. Like something, like some concept, right? Like some form. But what you come to see through revelation, if you practice meditation correctly and if you follow these teachings, is that not only is the self that you're attempting to see, not only is that self not on the other side of the lens, right? But it is on neither side, right? So you could say that one of the things that has been used to talk about this idea is from St. Francis of Assisi, who said, what you're looking for is who you're looking for, or what you're looking for is who's looking, right? That's the idea that you're on the one side of the lens trying to see who you are on the other side, right? But what you're looking for is what's looking, okay? However, ultimately, what you'll discover if you continue with the exploration and you continue to have the direct experience is that what you're looking for is on neither side of the lens. Because again, to talk about it that way is to say it's either here, it's either there, here or there, right? It's either here or there. But the truth of who we are and the truth of reality is non-dual. Non-dual. So it means it's neither here or there. It's here and there at the same time. So we live in the world of opposites, right? We live in the world of opposites, right? We need opposites to have things manifest in form. We need up to be able to know down, right? We need out to be able to know in. But this discovery experientially is beyond opposites. And that's why it's paradoxical. It's beyond opposites. In the discovery of who you are, in and out are the same thing. Now, you know, so don't listen to what I'm saying right now and try and understand it, because the mind can't get that, right? But listen to what I'm saying like there's a possibility of actually experiencing that, And that's not the same. For example, we normally live in a dualistic reality in the sense that you experience the world is out here and I'm in here, right? When you have the revelation, when it's revealed to you, when the truth is seen directly, experientially, you see that what's out here and what's in here are one thing. Are one thing. And that one thing is consciousness, right? The mind separates things into this or that, conceptually. But experientially, and this is one of the things that Rupert emphasizes in this particular book, experientially, there is no difference between in and out. If you think about it, there is, but experientially, there is no difference between in and out. Experientially, it's actually obvious who you are. Experientially, it's actually easy to recognize that all there is consciousness. But in order to see that and to have that experience, right, you have to stop trying to use the mind to see it or comprehend it, because the mind can only comprehend what's conceptual and dualistic, right? So in these practices, that's why when you practice meditation, you're practicing moving your attention away from the mind, moving your attention away from thinking, because thinking is conceptual and dualistic. And as you move your attention away from thinking, and as you become more stable in maintaining your attention away from thinking, things start to reveal themselves. Because now your attention is on the experience of what's happening, not the thought about it. Do you see that? Your attention is on the experience of what's happening, not the thought about it. You know what the word confusion means? Right? Confusion means you're taking things and fusing them together, right? Like thinking and attention. When you fuse them together, it's confusing, right? Confusion, right? And so through these practices, we want to unfuse what's confused, right? So that we can see it with clarity, we can see it with distinction, we can see the difference between awareness and thinking. They're two different things. But again, the most important thing of all is to become a student of consciousness and practice meditation and become a student of meditation, learn and understand more and more about it conceptually, right? And as you learn and understand more and more about it conceptually, eventually you'll get to a place where you reach the limits of the mind, right? And one of the ways you'll know you're doing that is you'll be very frustrated. You'll be very, maybe upset. You'll be very, you may at that point give up the search or give up the process. And it's when you give up the search and the process by using the mind that it becomes possible to directly see what you've been trying to see, you see, because it's not conceptual, right? But you're so conditioned to use the mind, to exist. You're conditioned to use the mind to exist. Meaning that you're conditioned to consider yourself to be your body. This is the conditioning. You're conditioned to consider yourself to be your body. You're conditioned to consider yourself to be your personality. You're conditioned to consider yourself to be the thinker of your thoughts. That's the world in which most of humanity is living, right? And so the process that we're involved with is a process of deconditioning, of deconstructing that construction. And as you deconstruct that construction by seeing its limitations, right, it loses its ability to hold its grip on you. It loses its ability to keep you hypnotized. It loses its ability to keep you in the trance. And at some point, if you persist in the process, the mind will collapse and you'll see directly the truth. It'll be obvious. And when you see the truth and it's obvious, it's usually surprising to people. And they say things like, well, can it be that simple? You know? They say things like, well, now that I see it, I can see that it's always been like this. I can see that it's always been this way. And it becomes obvious. It's surprising to people. Sometimes when people discover the truth as a direct experience, they begin to laugh like it's a joke. How could this be so obvious, right? And it is obvious. It's so obvious that it's very difficult to see, right? It's so evident that you keep trying to see it instead of actually seeing it. You see what I mean? It's so evident that you keep trying to see it instead of seeing it. And so one of the things that has to happen in order for you to realize the potential of being who you actually are and to realize the potential of seeing things as they actually are is you have to go, it's inevitable that you have to go through this process of trying to do it, which means that you think about it, which means that you think if you understand it enough that you'll see it. But you have to go through the process of exhausting that, right? And realizing that that's never going to work and you're never going to get there. And so it takes time to get out of that it takes time to get out of that mental state. It takes time to get out of that mental. And I'll tell you something, Bob. I really give you guys a lot of credit. You know, I really have great admiration for you. I really acknowledge you because it takes something to be able to tolerate this, doesn't it? It takes something to tolerate this, right? And for a lot of people, it gets to the point where they say, oh, that's bullshit. You just write it off, right? And go back to try and live your life and get your life to work in the same way that everybody else is doing it, right? But of course, the only way you could do that is to go back to sleep, because if you pay attention, right, it can't be the case that everybody all over the world, the billions of people that are trying to do it that way, are all failing, right? It's like Paul Hederman says, the only value there is in attempting to live life the way most people attempt to live it is to discover it's a failure. That's the only value of it, is to discover it's a failure. And if you discover it's a failure, then you begin to open yourself up and open your mind up to other possibilities. And then you discover that these things we speak of are not new. These things we speak of have been around from ancient times, right? If you study these things, you can go back and see what Jesus Christ was talking about, what the Buddha was talking about, what Lao Tse was talking about, what Muhammad was talking about. But we're burning up tons of energy all the time. Just maintaining the tension in the body is burning up tons of energy all the time. And that's one of the reasons why, as you begin to wake up, right, you have to make adjustments to tolerate the energy change. So you have to stay aware of your energy. You have to stay aware of your energy. As you wake up, as you stop burning the energy up with body tension, as you stop burning the energy up with mind wandering, you know, then you have a tremendous abundance of energy in the body. And that's why Tai Chi Cha, and that's why other practices that have to do with energy are important, because you have to develop an ability, the body has to change to be able to tolerate the energy. You see what I'm saying? Otherwise you become very uncomfortable and you won't be able to sleep at all, right? And you feel like you're wired, right? And so that's why as you go through this process, it's important to work with the energy, to release emotional energy, to be able to understand the flow of energy called the Qi. They talk about Kundalini Yoga. These are all things that come into play to study. and to work with the chi, work with the life force, work with the energy consciously, right? To help it to circulate and flow freely through the body, right? And then you can have a tremendous amount of energy and still be comfortable, okay? So, you know, my intention is to keep throwing a lot at you, you see, to keep throwing a lot at you, right? To try and keep you motivated and inspired to understand this possibility, right? So I hope that that's useful. I hope that that helps.